no one's really talking about it, but it is the biggest risk out there in the markets, in my view. We're going to get into that in some detail. Before we do, if you put a comment down below in the chat, you can actually win today. We're doing a raffle today every week. Apple TVs, $800 subscriptions to our newsletters and so on. So put a comment down below. But what am I talking about? Well, commercial real estate, of course. And we had Wells Fargo reporting today. And if you go through their earnings call, you will see they're talking about, yes, $500 billion of commercial real estate debt is due this year to mature. And that just means they need to be refinanced at higher rates. We've got office vacancy creeping up from like 19 point something to over 20%. Wells Fargo warning particularly on prime cities like San Francisco and saying, look, people might just start to keep going with this hybrid work arrangement whereby companies just need less retail space, less real estate space, and therefore vacancy rates are going to go even higher. And what does that mean? Well, it just means you've got tenants negotiating, you've got landlords with much, much higher costs, and just an unbalanced market. Doesn't apply everywhere. JP Morgan saying rather smugly that their portfolio of what they are involved in is only in markets where demand is really, really tight. So it doesn't apply to everybody, never does. And the big banks, as we saw today, are the real beneficiaries of the banking crisis, right? Those guys have hoovered up all the deposits and haven't paid out any interest on it to the people putting these deposits in. And therefore they're reaping massive, massive profits. And that's just the general unfairness of the whole finance space. I think in one word, they basically are almost encouraging the banking crisis, and then they reap the rewards. So it goes to show who wins at the end of the day. But I still think this commercial real estate saga hasn't been really talked about enough. I don't think we've seen the real risks yet. Something's going to break in that sector, in my view. And, you're seeing, Blackstone raising money. Here's someone rather spectacular. You see that hound? And, raising $30 billion to basically pick up cheap real estate. So there's always some advantage in that too. Do you want to see some really nice property? Look at that. That's a nice one, isn't it? Monaco doesn't have many houses, but this is one of these streets. Let me show you the back of these. These are all spectacular. Can you see that? It's a whole row of these beautiful old villas left, and they all have lemon trees and citrus trees growing in them. It's really fantastic. But yeah, so we're on real estate, and I got distracted by real estate around me. So what can you do about it? Well, I think you can look for ways to profit. I mean, you can look through REITs, which ones are going to get hit hardest. You could also just wait and see when the recession comes and then see which REITs got hit the hardest. And then those are potentially the real upside plays, right? I was also talking in our community this morning with our coaching students. I put out a trade this morning and I was talking about small caps. And I think there are some opportunities in that as well. But you always want to set that up carefully with limited risk and with the ability to be wrong and still make money. And that's exactly the way that I've set it up. So if that's something you guys want to learn about, how we do that, we don't have to be binary. We don't have to be right or wrong. We can be sort of right, but wrong by say 5% or 10% and still make some money. And that's typically the way I set up my trades. Trying not to get run over here. But down there, look at that. It's the water down there. Can you see that? The end of the street. It is a nice space, Monaco. So that's the sort of thing I'd look at. And if you have any interest in that, look, you check out the links down below. We have a course on it, felixfrancelog/options. We have a coaching program where you can actually learn one-on-one from investment bankers like myself, but even much more experience than myself, 10, 20, even 50 years of trading experience with institutions, with big banks, market makers, and so on. And it just changes the way you do everything. It changes the way you look at the market. It changes the way you really look for opportunities. And for me, it's fun. I wake up every day and I go, well, what's broken today? Brilliant opportunity. Let's go make some money. And it doesn't take a lot of time. And I think people misunderstand that. Like I spent maybe 20 minutes a day trading. And then it's really fun. So if you want to join us on that, links are down below. You know what to do. I appreciate you watching. Remember those comments down below as well, and win something great. I'll put out the winners today in the community section of the channel. Thanks for tuning in.